Military history is often sold as a dramatic narrative of heroism. In practice, it is engineered through cold, tactical logic. The idealist view of war suggests that conflicts are decided by the weight of a cause, the favor of the divine, or the sheer willpower of the individual soldier. Professionals rely on a materialist reality instead. They recognize that war is governed by physical capacities, supply chains, and economic baselines. Looking across history, a strange commonality appears between groups that seemingly share no common ground. Ancient monarchs, 19th century aristocrats, and 20th century revolutionaries all operated within the same framework. Specifically, the foundational theories of Sun Tzu, Karl von Clausewitz, and Mao Zedong. Despite their radically different political ideologies, the first rule of warfare across these doctrines converges on an identical, materialist reality. Materialistic conditions and strategy refer to the measurable physical resources and the control of information, rather than the power of abstract ideas. This approach treats morale as a byproduct of physical and organizational conditions, rather than a mystical will to win that can overcome material deficits. By reviewing classical theory, modern military science, and Marxist-Leninist doctrine, we can build a unified model of how these physical constraints dictate victory. To understand grand strategy, we must strip away the ideological romance of the battlefield and examine the mathematical mechanics underneath. Classical strategy begins with Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Sun Tzu's primary rule is that all warfare is based on deception. Deception represents the calculated manipulation of information asymmetry. One node possesses a radius of clear data, while the other is blinded by obscured variables. Controlling this information allows a commander to shape the physical conditions of the engagement before the first shot is fired. 25 centuries later, the 19th century Prussian theorist Karl von Clausewitz codified the same pragmatism. Clausewitz famously stated that war is the continuation of policy by other means. His Trinity model places the chaos of passion and chance at the base, with the apex node of reason, or policy, serving as the governing force. Clausewitz framed war as a subordinate instrument of state policy, a tool used to achieve tangible material interests. Without a defined political end state, the violence of war becomes wasted material effort. These classical theories align on the necessity of prioritizing state objectives and intelligence over the pursuit of battlefield glory. Modern NATO and Soviet field manuals operationalize these classical ideas through the principle of the objective. Even with a perfectly defined objective, modern doctrine introduces a physical limit to strategy. Logistics functions as the primary material constraint. Professionals focus on the movement and maintenance of forces, while amateurs focus on tactics. Grand strategy collapses the moment it is no longer supported by physical supply lines. Napoleon's 1812 invasion of Russia demonstrated the failure of a material baseline. Deep territorial penetration creates inherent friction. As the supply integrity drops, the army eventually faces systemic collapse. Starvation, cold, and distance defeated the French army more effectively than any opposing ideal. Tactical maneuvers are mathematically negated when the material baseline of food, fuel, and ammunition reaches zero. In the 20th century, Marxist-Leninist doctrine introduced an economic analysis to these military principles. Lenin argued that if state policy is driven by economics, then war is a clash of material class interests. He applied this logic to the nature of World War I. Lenin viewed the conflict as a product of imperialist competition for resources and markets, rather than a matter of national honor. Mao Zedong turned this class analysis into an operational strategy for the Chinese Communist Revolution. Mao's observation that political power grows from a gun barrel identifies raw material capacity as the baseline of authority. His concept of people's war utilized the metaphor of the people serving as water to the guerrilla's fish. Popular support provided a tangible logistical and intelligence network, integrating the military into local labor as a material asset. Mao's primary military rule was to preserve one's own forces and destroy the enemy's. Success depended on avoiding battles where the Red Army lacked material superiority, preserving and organizing their strength for decisive moments. Marxist-Leninist movements achieved victory by engineering the civilian population into a decentralized logistical machine. We assemble these eras into a single model. For intelligence, a line connects Sun Tzu, modern reconnaissance, and Mao. Logistics connects classical provisioning, modern supply lines, and mass mobilization. Finally, policy links Clausewitz, the modern objective, and Lenin's class analysis, completing the strategy matrix. Millennia of conflict and massive ideological divides reveal that the underlying physics of war remain identical. As history proves again and again, strategic victory requires a refusal to delude oneself about the physical reality of the conflict. With honor, bravado, and righteous causes stripped away, warfare reveals its nature as a materialistic equation, the act of bending reality through superior physical conditions.